A really curious discussion from ESPN talking about Carson Beck and his NFL potential, etc. This is what ESPN had to say earlier this week about the 2024 draft. Now, listen, let me give you a little context here, okay? Um, my suspicion and my, how do I put it, informed speculation is that Carson Beck, if he has a good year, he's out. So this isn't going to be a 2-year thing. I don't think. It's go time. I don't think now Carson can speak for himself, but I don't think that his plan was ever to be at Georgia until 2024 when he arrived in 2020. So all of that, you know, and things can change too, by the way. But here's what ESPN has to say about Carson Beck as it relates to the NFL draft. They go on to say, Beck is likely the next man up for the Bulldogs after waiting his turn for 3 seasons. Unlike Stetson Bennett, Beck is a true drop-back passer who thrives from the pocket, so the offense in Athens should look more like what we saw during the days of Jake Fromm. Some people are going to fight you about that. I don't think you want to see that. Anyway, Beck finished with 310 yards passing and 4 touchdowns in 7 games this season. 6'4" and 215 pounds. He can diagnose and deliver to all areas of the field. It is a relative unknown. He is a relative unknown heading into his redshirt junior season, but he's surrounded by plenty of standout targets as he tries to help the program win a 3rd consecutive national championship. I want to say something real quick. I've talked about Carson a lot, and I would be talking about Stetson or, Brock Vandegrift or Gunner. A lot of people know about Carson Beck. A lot of people in the league know about Carson Beck. Everybody at Georgia knows about Carson Beck. The only thing, so that this he is a relative unknown heading into the redshirt junior season. I understand that. That's probably factually correct depending on your audience. And to the readers of ESPN.com, that may be the case. I'm just telling you right now, when you talk to people around the league, they don't have a lot of sort of concern, I guess you could say, about what Carson Beck can do. Yes, he has not played. He's not been the starting quarterback at Georgia. I mean, it's that simple. And is he a relative unknown? I mean, I think he played a lot last year. We just don't know what it's like for Carson when it's totally go time. When you're like I've been talking about, when you're up on South Carolina by 10 rather than on 20 by 20 in the 3rd quarter and it's still a game. What's that going to be like? Pick up our 2023 season preview. I know a lot of y'all are new watchers. We actually have it's a neat layout, by the way. We actually have a story in here about Carson that I went into a lot of detail with. If you pick up Double Dogs today, the link is down below. You can get them both at the same time. The only place that you can get this besides down low is Red Zone, which is on Clayton Street in Athens. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to keep the promotions to a minimum. I think, Stetson Bennett is not a normal quarterback. And when you go back and watch what Stetson did a season ago, his ability, go watch the South Carolina game, for instance. His ability to improvise was, compare it to Johnny Manziel, okay? I would say it compares at least as good, if not favorably, to what Johnny Manziel did. And Johnny Manziel was an exceptional quarterback in college. Stetson Bennett was an exceptional quarterback in college. It's just that Carson Beck is going to play the position differently. And that doesn't mean poorly or worse. It just means he's going to play it differently. And he may not have to improvise as much. I mean, Mac Jones is not the direct comparison. But, Carson's much more in the mold of Mac Jones and Joe Burrow than he is Stetson Bennett. And he is athletic and he can run, but he's more likely to hurt you from the pocket. But he's far more athletic than Jake Fromm in terms of football athleticism from what I've seen. Now, Jake Fromm may be a better athlete because Jake Fromm was a very good baseball player, but Jake Fromm was not an athletic quarterback, no. But even Jake Fromm can hurt you with his legs, right? Not like Stetson. And Beck, this is going to be about functional movement in the pocket. How do you move in the pocket? When is it time to get out of the pocket? Can you do all the things you need to do to be functionally really good? There's a lot of really good quarterbacks anymore. Across the country, you've seen, the Michigan quarterback has been in the college football playoff twice. I don't know if he's good or not, but he's been there twice. You had Max Duggan a year ago. The guy wasn't even a starter coming in the season. Stetson Bennett, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. We've really seen a lot of very good quarterbacks lately. The quarterback at North Carolina. So, it's not, what's the word? People shouldn't be surprised if Carson Beck is really good. They shouldn't. I would say that if he's not productive at Georgia, I'd be pretty surprised, frankly. That would surprise me because he's got all the skill set. I mean, it's not really, you shouldn't be like, hey, did you watch the spring game to see? Well, but that's all you got. I mean, and it's not just the spring game where the kid played. He also played in 7 games where he threw about a game's worth of balls. And he was really good when, he was throwing the ball. So, I'm not running the guy down who did the report at all. But it's just that we're here every day. We do this all the time. And it's not new for us to talk about Carson Beck. It's not new for us to talk about, whoever. This is what we do every day in and day out. He is surrounded by a slew of really good, not just receivers, but tight ends, running backs. Georgia's offensive line is going to be one of, if not the best in the country. I mean, Carson's got plenty of, maneuverability in terms of what's around him. They shouldn't be punting a ton. And, I don't think you're going to sit there watching Georgia, break records for the amount of punts they have in a season. So that's important to remember. But, the number one thing we don't know is how he's going to react when there's pressure. And, C.J. Stroud, I don't know enough about. I did not watch enough of C.J. Stroud. I thought he really played well against Georgia specifically. I think there were so many times when Ohio State was just running up and down the field with people. There wasn't a lot of pressure in those games. I didn't watch the Michigan-Ohio State game, but Michigan just bullied them. I don't know if that has anything to do with him, with Bryce Young. I mean, that kid, to me, performed under pressure well. And he just couldn't perform when he was, picking plastic pellets out of his mouthpiece. So, when a quarterback is laying on the ground, they're not very effective passers. When you look at, I'm trying to think of, other guys. If you're protected, you're going to be doing pretty well. Max Duggan, I'm looking at the cover of the magazine. You got a TCU player laying on the ground. I mean, you got Brock Bowers, and this guy is totally picking plastic out of his chiclets. It's just nothing you can do about it. When you're on the ground, you're not a very good quarterback. So if they can keep Carson upright, he's not going to have the ability to escape that Stetson had. But he's a different type of quarterback. And I don't think there's, we've seen the way Clemson's won national championships is different than the way that Georgia did, is different than the way that Alabama did, 12, 13 years ago. So there's no one way you have to do this. Nick has done this with multiple guys. He's done this with a Jake Fromm type and Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron. He's done this with whatever Tua was, and the combination of Tua and Jalen, which is the way that Stetson, was for Georgia. Nobody's had a Joe Burrow. All due respect to Trevor Lawrence, he ain't Joe Burrow, but he's really good and more athletic. I mean, I would not compare. Trevor Lawrence's ability to run is still underrated. I mean, that guy can really run, but this is going to be similar to what you've seen with Jones and and Joe Burrow, although I hesitate saying that because he's not Joe Burrow. But you saw with Clemson, speaking of Trevor, when they didn't protect Trevor, they just weren't good. And, they got beat. They got their asses beat by LSU. They got beat by Notre Dame or whatever. He wasn't the quarterback then. But, when a quarterback ain't playing so hot, it's usually because, either he's off, which with these really good guys, that just doesn't happen anymore very often. Or the pressure is right in their face. We don't know what it's like for Carson to take a hit. We don't know what it's like for him to have someone in his face. We don't know these things. That's the thing that we're going to have to see. But that's what ESPN had to say about Carson Beck. You tell me what you think.